Hello and welcome to episode 5 of Motorsports with Motorhead. I am your host, Captain Motorhead. Quite a bit to talk about today. I know on Sunday I covered the F1 race, so we already have that out of the way. Still think that was a pretty cool race that took place there though, and still congratulations to Lando for his win. I'm still not letting any of the controversy take away from that. But here we are. Aftermath of Chicago, a street race, road course. Absolutely loved it. It was a phenomenal race to watch. Got to watch it from start to end. Can thank my boss for giving me the day off on that one. Absolutely awesome because usually I'm having to watch the race replays and the highlights later on. Do love that NASCAR posts the full races on YouTube though. That way I can be able to always go back and watch them so I know what I'm talking about when it comes time for the podcast itself. Lots of cool things that took place. First off, though, there's nothing to really talk about for Craftsman Truck Series, as their next race is not until July 25th, whenever we do go to Indianapolis. So, going to have it's almost an entire month without really anything for them. But there we go. That's really it for the Truck Series because there was literally nothing on there. So, skipping straight down to Xfinity, again at Chicago. Really cool. SVG, Shane Van Gisbergen, he did get the pole there in Chicago and then ended up winning the race itself. So pretty dominant out of him. Couple cautions ended up happening throughout the race. First one was for someone backing into the wall. Jack Perkins in the number 19 kind of overcooked it a little bit and went backwards into the wall itself, completely caved in his rear end and ended his day. So sucked to see it for him, but sadly that's how you're going to be at Chicago. We saw that throughout practice and qualifying for both Xfinity and Cup. Drivers having issues, hitting walls. It actually is what kept Corey Heim from even qualifying for the Cup race due to him skimming the wall throughout his qualifying lap. So we saw it from everybody. It's not just like, oh, one driver. All right, in fact, the 14 of Connor Mozak and the 39 of Ryan were both into the walls. Thanks to them, though, we did stay green because they were able to get going. One of the cautions they did throw was for the 45 of Brad Perez. Now, he was stuck in the barriers for a second, but the thing that kind of threw me off with that one is that he actually got going about the same time they threw the caution. So I don't know if it was just a timing issue there where they didn't see that he was getting himself free as they decided to finally throw the caution, because they waited a good minute before they threw it, and then they finally decided to, and it's just, well, he was getting himself free. So that was kind of funny to me that, the timing on that one. And some of the timing with NASCAR and their cautions over the weekend was a little bit questionable. There were some that seemed like they kind of threw a little early, and then some that they threw a little bit late. And we will get into that a little bit more later on. But shout out to Connor Zilic. He did start in the back of the field, actually started 35th. Ended up finishing the whole race in second. SVG won stage 1, even though it was under caution due to that Brad Perez incident that I just mentioned. Sheldon Creed went on to win stage 2. He was doing pretty good throughout the race as well. Connor Zilic ended up passing him later on, though. And Zilic himself would take the lead with 13 laps to go. Shane Van Gisbergen was in 8th place at the time. But by lap 10, just 3 laps later, he was already up to 4th and was even passing 3rd going into the very first turn. And then was already going down to Sheldon Creed, who was currently in 2nd. And he was right there on him. Sheldon Creed actually put one of his fingers out the window, not the bad one, like what some people might be thinking. Nope, he was just pointing for SVG to go around him, and SVG did so, putting him into 2nd place. And honestly, that would have been the end of it. SVG was about 3 seconds behind Connor Zilisch, so he was not going to be able to catch Connor. It would have been Connor Zilisch winning the race, SVG coming in second. But then a caution came out. Number 35, Andre Castro, went into one of the tire barriers. And I really wish I could be able to tell you guys, what turns exactly that was in, but even the booth wasn't really telling us for the most part what turns people were going into the barriers on. And I kept trying to look it up later, but it wasn't ever really explained, and I really hate that because for the most part anyway, if you watch IndyCar or F1, they tell you exactly what turn someone goes off the track on or what turn someone goes into the barriers and where the accident's located. And I would really like to see our NASCAR broadcast do the same thing because it makes it tough for fans, especially ones like me who, I had to listen to the Xfinity race. I didn't get to watch it, so I would like to hear that more and be able to know exactly where it's at on the course instead of just, oh, we got a driver in the tire barriers. Okay, where? Tell me where. Because I hate this. I don't know exactly what turn he was in to be able to even say if it was something that they should have been able to hold off on for a moment and see if he could have made it out, or if it was one of the tire barriers where, yeah, when you were in it, you're in it. But they threw the caution. All right, and that was with about 6 laps to go. So I'm not saying that it wasn't going to be one of those moments where if you didn't throw it, you could have waited for the driver to take the white flag. Foreshadowing. But it was definitely one of those moments where they threw it really quick, and SVG, Connor Zilisch restart is what it led to. With just 2 laps to go, we go back green. Connor Zilisch was actually outbeating SVG heading towards turn 1. He was ahead of him. But SVG ran him real deep into the turn. Connor Zilisch actually hit the wall just a little bit, not major, just a little scrape, but he did hit the wall. There was contact. And he actually almost fell back to 4th place, but he drove real hard and made sure to continue to be in second going into turn 2. Sending it 3 wide actually to be able to keep that spot. And he was right there on the back of SVG for the last 2 laps. SVG got a little bit loose in a couple of the turns. You could definitely tell that Connor Zilisch was right there putting the pressure on him. And I honestly think if there would have just been a few more laps of green, that we could have been able to get out of the whole thing. Connor Zilisch might have been able to get back around SVG. He was definitely giving him a run. But in the end, SVG won by just about half a second. So, close race, especially when you got, one of the young ones, Connor Zilisch, doing absolutely phenomenal. I still truly believe that he's going to be the one taking over next year in that number 99 car, and why we're seeing the departure of Daniel Suarez from Trackhouse, versus Shane Van Gisbergen, who is a champion in other series overseas, came here to Chicago, won his first Cup race in 2023, got him his ride for 2024 in Xfinity, which then, of course, turned into his now Cup ride for 2025. So it's really cool to see those two going at it. I love to see the fact that Connor Zilisch went from the back of the field to finish in second and had the potential to win. He really did. And if that last caution wouldn't have come out, he would have been our winner, which I still think would have been really cool to see as well. Just saying, he was driving the 88. So if he would have won, then you would have had the 88 in victory lane both for Saturday and Sunday. So I think that would have been kind of a cool thing. But even cooler than that is the fact that we had the driver of the 9 and the driver of the 88, who was the same exact driver this weekend, win. Cool little fact on that. Same thing happened in Mexico. Daniel Suarez drove the 9, and then you had SVG in the 88. They both won that weekend, so it was kind of a little cool. I'm glad that the booth did a little shout out to that at the end of the race, because there's quite a few things they didn't talk about. And then there's some that they kind of talked about only here and there. I felt like could have been a little bit bigger discussion going into the Cup race, and that is, of course, the In-Series Challenge. I think part of the reason maybe they didn't want to talk about it too much, and it's the one thing I did hear them say at the beginning of the race, is how, again, there are 0 perfect brackets left. And I think that kind of just took away from a lot of the fans' enjoyment of the whole in-season challenge. I still enjoyed it. It was kind of cool. We did have Bubba Wallace and Alex Bowman going into the race as a matchup. So that was kind of an interesting thing. We'll get more into that here in a minute. But I want to talk about the first caution that happened on just lap 3 going into the Cup race. Carson Hocevar, a guy that I think is doing rather well. And I wasn't the biggest fan of him when he was in the Truck Series. I saw him as just what a lot of other people saw him as, a kid that just liked to wreck people for the win or wreck people for position. He kind of got in a little bit of trouble for right rearing people a lot and spinning people out, or just putting people in the wall, racing them too hard, kind of being a bit of a menace. We saw him kind of cool down a little bit as he came into his Cup career. He's been playing real good with the fans. He even has that, I think it's a Chevy truck or a GMC. I can't remember exactly which one it is right now off the top of my head, but it's one or the other. And it is all decked out to look like a Dale Earnhardt race truck. So it's really cool. Fans love it. I thought it was hilarious when he first bought it and he showed all the pictures of it and everything. So it's just really cool to have. He's been taking it to some of the racetracks with him whenever he's been going. And again, fans are absolutely eating it up. So, in the fans' perspective, he's been doing pretty well. I know in the driver perspective, though, he just had that run-in with Ricky Stenhouse Jr. down in Mexico, where Ricky was all, "I'm gonna wait till we get back to the States, but then I'm gonna beat you." We still haven't really seen anything out of Ricky. Knowing him, he is probably gonna wait for it to matter most. And I have mentioned that before. But yes, Carson made a mistake. And this one, I do know what wall it was for once, but going into turn 10, he hits the wall with his right rear, and it completely busted it. I mean, he hit it hard. Watching the replays, you can see the fact that that right rear was just kind of bouncing around after he made contact, caused him to spin out, and he was in the front of the pack. I mean, not leading the race, but up front. So this happened basically in front of everybody. All right, due to this, traffic jam ensues. Number 6 of Brad Keselowski out of the race. Number 99 of Daniel Suarez had major damage to his front bumper. He ended up finishing the race in 29th after being a lap down for quite a while due to the fact that he had to go to the pits and make some repairs. Another one that was out was Austin Dillon. I was actually able to listen in on some of his radio, and then they did show this on the NASCAR Radioactive as well. But exact quote here from him. Carson Hocevar is the biggest dumb bleep in the entire sport. Okay. That's coming from the guy who just last year won a race by wrecking 2 others. I remember one was Denny Hamlin. I'm trying to remember who the other one was in front of him, but wrecked both of them to get the win. And NASCAR decided that, hey, you know what? Our win and you're in doesn't apply to you for the playoffs because of how you won your race. They didn't take the win exactly away from him. He still got to have the little checkered flag sticker on his car, but it basically should have had an asterisk next to it because it didn't matter. He wasn't in the playoffs, just like anyone else who would have won would have been. So I don't really know if him calling Carson Hocevar the biggest dumb bleep is exactly the right way to go there. But whatever, I guess heat of the moment, you're going to say things. But other than that, Todd Gilligan and Will Brown were both also taken out due to this. So you had 5 cars out on lap 3. So was Carson Hocevar to blame? Yes. Oh, definitely to blame there. But I don't know. Everyone makes mistakes. It's Chicago. First time for Hocevar racing in a Cup car there. He did rather well in the qualifying and as well as practice. So obviously he knew what he was doing a little bit, but he just sent it a little too hard. And accidents happen. He's not the only guy that made any mistakes over the weekend. You had most of the Hendrick boys start in the back of the race because of the fact that they all had to have things fixed due to damage, most of which happened either in practice or qualifying. I can't add Denny Hamlin to that, but he also started in the back. His was due to engine failure though in practice. So in Bubba Wallace, he spun out during his qualifying. So mistakes happen. These guys, I know they're top drivers and they're held to higher standards, but even look at other series. guys wreck out all the time, especially on road courses, and especially these tight ones that are basically street races. I've seen F1 do the same thing, become an entire parking lot before. So I don't really agree with what Austin Dillon said. I just think that it was a mistake, and it happens, and that maybe a guy who again got his own win taken away from him in a way shouldn't be commenting so quickly on other drivers. But other than that, Michael McDowell did take the lead going from the very first lap. Right away, he did start second, took it from SVG going into the very first turn, and that was it. SVG was on the radio saying that he was stuck behind McDowell. One of the quotes that he actually said was, "His car's good, he's useless. He just keeps missing apexes and making mistakes." Closer to the end of the stage one, he ended up deciding to pit, partially due to the fact that they were wanting to win more than they were wanting stage points, because they know that at this point in the season they are so far back in the point standings when it comes to regular points, not playoff points. Playoffs, they're good to go now. They're up into fifth after this weekend, but before that they were at least guaranteed in, but they know that they need more wins. And this is a place for them to be able to capitalize and get a win, not just settle for stage points. And so I could tell that's what they're going to decide to do. Don't really know if being stuck behind Michael McDowell was another factor into that, where they're like, we're not going to get past him. We're not going to get the stage win. Yes, we can be in the top 10, be able to get some points, but we're not going to be the one to get the most. Let's go ahead, pit here, and then get a better position going forward. Don't know for sure on that, but I think strategy is a good play, and that's something I do like. I wish the stage breaks weren't in the street race road course. I really do. I'm gonna hit back on that. I know I talked on that last week, but it's again, we don't need the stage breaks. I think that it would have been able to change up how this race played out. But yes, again, SVG decided to pit. Michael McDowell stays out, ends up winning stage one, first stage win for his entire team. So I think that's a really cool thing for them. Sadly, that is where their day would basically end, though. We would go into stage two. Michael McDowell would still be the leader, but Bubba Wallace would spin. And that would actually bring out the caution. And due to the caution, and while under caution, Michael McDowell's, I think they said it was his clutch line got caught, and it was stuck open. And so you actually, if you got to watch the race, all of a sudden, whenever they were going through while under caution, Michael McDowell just blocked up the front tires. I even saw there was tire smoke out of nowhere, and he just locked it up. And the commentators go, "What's going on there?" And Michael McDowell went to the pits, and they got up under the hood, and sadly, I heard over the radio for him, and they said this is going to take too long to fix. We got to go to the DVP area, damaged vehicle policy, and that was it. They weren't able to fix it. Michael McDowell's day was over, and he actually finishes 32nd. So great start, but sadly didn't get to capitalize on that. To get to the actual spin for Bubba, was a little bit of an issue with Kyle Larson. Now, I'm not saying the issue was Kyle Larson, it was an issue with him. It's because of the fact that Kyle Larson got to his inside door and was there. He was there. I was watching the actual race, saw it. Bubba Wallace's spotter was late in telling him that Kyle was there, and due to that, Bubba kind of cut across the front of Kyle's car and spun himself out. Bubba to his spotter, that was a late blank call, man. Yeah, it was late. I went back and got to listen to that on Radioactive, and his spotter basically said that Larson was there almost at the same time the contact happened. So there was nothing that Bubba was going to be able to do to avoid that at that point. Shout out to the Arby's Twitter/X account. Whoever is doing that made a phenomenal joke because Bubba Wallace is in a McDonald's car. They talk about him having to do a McDouble take because he spun out right in front of the Arby's new cheesesteak sign. So I thought that was really cool and kind of funny. The person on the Twitter/X account, they would go on to make quite a few other jokes throughout, and no matter which one it was, even if it was at Hendrick's expense, was hilarious because Alex Bowman ended up spinning out later on, and he spun out again in front of the RB sign and said something about cheesesteaks this way, and it had an arrow pointing right. And so they posted, "Sorry, Mr. H, but it says cheesesteaks this way." So just real funny. I won't lie. I ended up having to go get an Arby's cheesesteak because of that. Because, I mean, that was some great promotional stuff right there. And whoever is doing their social account definitely deserves that job and should keep it up. I love to see that. I've seen McDonald's kind of been funny a little bit online too before, whenever they were sponsoring some of the NASCAR races, and so it just makes it entertaining, adds to it. So just a little fun shout out there to them. But on more for the spin, Chase Elliott got mad with his spotter. The spotter said, "Stay right, stay right." Chase Elliott's response to him after making it through is, "I need to know somebody bleeping crashed." Yeah, I don't blame him for getting mad at that one. Spotter definitely should have let him know, hey, they're wrecking or they're spinning, something like that. That way he would have known to lock it down a little bit. Chase made it through with just minimal damage, but I still get his frustration there, especially since, again, they all started at the back of the field, so they're making their way through all this traffic. Um, yeah, another thing I saw for Chicago that a lot of people complain about is where the spotters were. I don't blame them. The spotters were in horrible locations. I don't know if that had something to do with some of these calls or the lack of calls. I know whenever they had the Hocevar wreck, it was right there with all the trees. I was even commenting during the race, like, wow, kind of sucks this happened right with all the trees are at. All the camera angles we kept getting, you couldn't see very much until they got to a closer angle of the track. So it makes the spotters' jobs difficult. I know there's hard tracks, but I feel like Chicago street race has been one of the most difficult for spotters, at least in the most recent of years that I know of. So, it sucks for them, but shout out for the job that they tried to do. And I see that a lot of the drivers were frustrated with them. But it's a bit of an ongoing thing when it comes to Chicago, because I know in the previous years it's been the same thing. It's just now, I even saw some of the drivers commenting on it. Denny Hamlin talked about in his podcast, trees are growing. They've moved some signs. New signs appear. So every time they go, they got to find new braking points to be able to kind of look at landmarks. Because he's like, they might have an actual braking point landmark on the left side of the track, but if you're on the right side of a car, you can't see that. So you got to find one on the opposite side of the track. So that's a true thing. I've never been in a true race car, but I can say from playing lots of Forza that, yeah, you had to find the braking points unless you want to use all the freaking brake assist, which, guess what? Real life doesn't have that. So they have no choice but to find that. So I think it's really cool that he even talks about that being a bit of an issue. And I saw it too, just even from watching the race and knowing that a lot of the spotters were having to be on top of hotels and everything to be able to see that, yeah, they're going to have some of the same issues, especially when you had lots of trees going over the road. Granted, it made it cool during the race whenever they were going, because kind of a little bit of a scenic drive for them, I'm sure, but for the fans, it makes it a little bit more difficult. And I don't know if maybe that was just also part of TNT's broadcast. Hate to be pointing fingers there, but I want to talk about that for a minute real quick, because it wasn't that great. I really wish it was Amazon covering this race instead at this point because of such a high bar they set. The pre-race talk was horrible. The post-race show was dismal. The camera angles during the race wasn't the greatest. I'll touch more on this here in just a minute as we get to it for real, but they even missed when Bubba Wallace spun off of Alex Bowman's bumper. They were watching a lot of that action, and I don't know if they just cut away at the wrong moment or what. But right as Bubba spins, they decide to cut away. And they didn't even cut away to the lead. I would have understood that. We were in the winding down laps, and they'd been away from the lead for a while, but that's not even where they cut to. And so it just didn't make much sense. And I don't know if it's just, again, Amazon set such a high bar that no other place is going to be able to match it. I don't know. I feel like TNT tried to scrape together a few things for their broadcast last week and this week to try and be able to maybe match Amazon a little bit more, but they're just not there yet. and the race control people weren't making the greatest calls throughout the entire race. Again, we'll get on that part at the very, very end for the great little end talk, but I liked it, but I didn't like it. I feel like those there in person enjoyed the race more. If I would have been listening on MRN radio, maybe I would have enjoyed it more than actually watching the true broadcast. I've seen a lot of the videos that fans have posted from their views of the race, and it's really cool. Why didn't we get more sidetrack views and things like that instead of all this overhead stuff? So I just don't know. I feel like we could have got a little bit of a better broadcast, and it would have made the race that much cooler. It wasn't a horrible race. It was still pretty good. They were going off of all the different battles going on throughout. You had fast cars in the back of the track, back of the pack, due to the fact, again, issues in qualifying. Denny Hamlin was flying through. You had Bubba Wallace that kept going up in his spots. All four of the Hendrick cars kept moving, 3 out of 4 Hendrick cars kept moving forward. Poor William Byron, he started the race with clutch issues and only completed one lap, and that was barely even completing it. He limped back around to pit lane, went in, never to come out again. And that's sad for any of the 24 fans out there that were at the race. I mean, it sucks for us watching, but we weren't there expecting to see him go around lap by lap where you get to cheer on your favorite driver as you're wearing his merchandise and everything. Horrible to see for that all-pro sponsor that he had because, again, he only got to do one lap, so no airtime for them, and anyone that bought any merchandise for that kind of sucks. Just like with the Kyle Larson double stuff, I'm glad I didn't really get any of the shirts or anything for it because he didn't get to complete the full double either year. I know it's still cool mementos to have, but at the same time, when you don't get to see your driver actually do well with something like that, it just kind of a little bit insult to injury. At least that's how I see that. Correct me if I'm wrong there. And hey, if I am, it's okay. We all have our different opinions. But anyway, I wish that the broadcast would have been better. I really hope to see everyone step their game up for 2026 because of the fact of Prime. Because I don't think that any of them want to give up having NASCAR as part of their contracts. So I hope to see them all step their game up and really show us that they don't want to lose to Prime. It's the only way that this is going to be able to make it. If not, then I don't know why we wouldn't just give it to Prime fully and just keep it there. Forget everything else. If it's not going to work, it's not going to work. But for stage 2, after that Bubba Wallace spin, there really wasn't much else to talk about. Like I said, Michael McDowell had to retire from the race. Josh Berry would end up spinning, but he kept going. Josh Berry spun but couldn't get going. Tyler Reddick would pit before the caution, and SVG would then lead for most of the stage until he pits near the end of the stage. Ryan Blaney would go on to win stage 2. We go back into stage 3. SVG takes the lead, and then a caution comes out for an ambulance. Some fans, again, were complaining about this, and I just don't get why. Safety. I've talked about it before, and I'll talk about it again. I'll always keep talking about it. It was one of the biggest things my dad would talk about whenever he was Captain Motorhead, was staying safe. And whether you're a driver,
a spectator, you need to be safe. And so, due to a spectator having some sort of medical issue, NASCAR didn't need to go into details on it. It's a private person's life. Not everyone needs to know exactly what was going on. All that anyone needs to know is that an ambulance needed to make it across the track. Now, why did an ambulance need to go across the track? Hello, it's a street course. They literally closed off streets of Chicago. Yes, Chicago, Illinois, the major city. And it was an ambulance. Why are fans upset? SVG had just taken the lead. They threw the caution. It's okay. The favorite driver for the race took the lead. It's not like they threw the caution right before he took the lead, and it's a conspiracy to keep him from getting the lead. No. It was just how the timing worked on that one. It's one of the cautions of this race that I entirely agree with and think that it was completely called. I mean, again, people's safety. We we can't speculate on everything being for something. Sorry, on everything being rigged. Okay, we can't. So for that one, I get it. And we got back to green rather quickly. SVG kept the lead even. So all it did was allow for a little bit more mayhem to ensue because on that restart, Ross Chastain got spun due to Austin Cindric pushing Kyle Larson into him. But wait, Joey Logano, innocent bystander who just happens to be right there and got slowed down to the whole thing, gets spun out by Ross Chastain just a few corners later when Ross fully just flies into him. I mean, I've seen the replay. They missed it during the race itself at first. Then they kind of showed a little bit of the outside, but gosh, the in-car camera replay that I got to see later on, that really showed what happened. Ross Chastain was like 3 cars back, and he just didn't even brake at first. His braking point was the 22. And when he went into him, he even took out Ricky Stenhouse Jr. So he took out 2 cars, and it wasn't even either one of their faults. It was Austin Cindric who ended up stopping on the track and caused a yellow because he couldn't get going. And I think it was a little bit of damage from whenever they all kind of got into each other. They didn't really show much of a replay to show if he got into the wall, so I just think that's where it came from. But wow, yeah, Ross Chastain. I saw a lot of people talking about that afterwards. And he and Joey Logano, they talked at the end of the race. And Joey went right up to him, and Ross straight up said, "Yeah, I wrecked you." So, NASCAR, I don't know why they didn't look into that more. I don't know if they felt like because it was kind of, on a road course or maybe because it wasn't in a high-speed area of the track or something, they're just kind of letting it be a racing incident. But at the same time, here in just the last year or so, they've cracked down on things like that and put out either small fines or big fines, just kind of depending on exactly what area of the track it happened at and everything else. So I was a little shocked to see that throughout this entire week, there was only even a few little talks from fans and other drivers, but nothing from NASCAR themselves about looking into the accident and being able to see if they need to fine Chastain. I don't know if it should have been a fine for sure, but at least some sort of investigation should have happened to look into it. And as Denny Hamlin loves to say, look at the SMT data. You really see, did he brake? Did he not brake? Was he just flying in there going way too hard? And then listen in on the end too. All these drivers have radios and everything else. Was there a media man around? Did anyone get it on camera? Where Ross Chain said, "Yeah, I wrecked you," because I saw the video of Joey Logano walking away after talking with him and saying, "Yeah, he admitted it. He admitted it. He should be fined." But I've not seen a video showing where Chastain admitted it. So I don't know, maybe that's the only reason why we haven't seen NASCAR look into it a little bit more. But it does have me questioning that a little bit, because it's like, why not on this one? And again, I don't know for sure if it should have been a fine or not, but I just feel like NASCAR should have even said that they were looking into it just to be able to show that they care about it, especially since supposedly he said that he did it on purpose. So I just don't know on that one. I feel like there should have been a little bit more into that, and I really wish that the booth would have shown us more during the race on that one. I shouldn't have had to rely on post-race videos to be able to see that more. It should have been something they talked about during the race, and I felt like, again, if it would have been Prime, they would have. And they would have even been able to kind of listen in on the radios, and they would have showed us exactly what took place and why it did take place. I think if we would have got all that in the real time during the race itself, maybe that would have sparked something for more from NASCAR. Especially if there would have been an in-car radio segment from Chastain saying anything about wrecking them. I know, listening to Radioactive later on, Joey Logano was on his team radio all upset and saying that Chastain needed to get his record straight before he just started going and wrecking people, because it wasn't even Logano that did anything to him whenever he got into the wall. So, yeah, I just don't know. Again, maybe with Prime that would have been a little bit different. All right, 10 laps to go. Bubba Wallace has Alex Bowman right behind him. Alex Bowman's on fresher tires. Tyler Reddick gets into the picture, comes right up behind Bowman, goes right around Bowman because Tyler Reddick is even on fresher tires than Bowman. Reddick starts passing Bubba Wallace, and I know Bubba Wallace is his teammate, so maybe this is why Bubba did not try and hold Reddick up too much, and even there could have been some team communication telling Bubba, hey, let him by. Don't really know for sure on that part. I did try and listen in on some stuff, but never heard anything where Bubba got told to let Reddick go by. I just think that because of the fact it was his teammate, he knew he was on fresher tires, he made that decision. As Reddick was trying to go by the rest of the way, though, he got a little too close to Wallace, and Wallace did actually bump off of the wall. Now, here's where I wonder if maybe Bubba didn't realize that was Tyler Reddick's fault and was blaming Alex Bowman. Don't know for sure. Sadly, Bubba has decided to not really talk about any of this in any post-race interviews, so it's going to be a little bit of speculation here. I know that both the drivers involved in this have come out to say things since then, but we'll talk about all that here in a second. But in the moment, Bowman starts to try and go around Bubba Wallace as well. He's doing it pretty clean, and finally does get around him. Barely makes contact, as they're going in one of the turns, which, again, it's a road course, street race. Yeah, it's going to happen. It wasn't anything crazy. Bubba Wallace didn't lose any time really due to it, and he definitely didn't hit the wall like he did whenever Tyler Reddick was even passing him. But Wallace wasn't done with Bowman. In turn 12, Bubba gets right into the back of him and actually gets him loose. This puts Bowman into the wall, and Bubba goes right up into the side of Bowman as he goes to try and pass him, getting Bubba in front of him just for the minute. Now, Bowman's still right there on him, and keeps almost getting matched up with him, and finally makes it to his driver's side rear corner as they go into another turn. Bubba tries to self-clear, okay, meaning that he just was going to move over in front of Bowman no matter what. Now, a lot of times in the past, I feel like Alex Bowman would have just lifted. I don't know if it was because of the fact that they were matched up with the in-season challenge, and since then Bowman has said it has nothing to do with that, but listening in on the team communications, they mentioned the fact that they were both racing for that million, so Bowman can say that it wasn't because of that all he wants, but part of me thinks it was. But either way, he didn't lift. He stayed in the gas, and that actually started to cause Bubba Wallace to turn in towards the wall because he was basically hooking him. Bubba then hit the wall just so slightly with his front, bounced off the opposite direction, and again, Bowman didn't lift, stayed in that gas, and just kept pushing. Bubba Wallace spun out entirely. Absolutely epic. Now, sadly, while watching the race, as I just mentioned earlier, the TV actually cut away right as they were going into the turn where Wallace turned Bowman. Bowman turned Wallace. Right as they were going into that turn is whenever they decided to cut away. It was 10 laps to go. At this time, SVG is over 2.5 seconds ahead of second place. Your best car is Tyler Reddick, who at the time was in 4th place, tracking down 3rd place, trying to be able to get in front of him. He's still pretty far back, though. So there's not really much going on up front. So I don't blame the TV for following what's going on from about 10th all the way back to 20th, which, of course, all in there is where the Bowman versus Wallace is at. But they cut away, and I don't remember exactly what car it was, but it was like 5th or 6th place. So they didn't even cut away to SVG. And then not even but 2 seconds later, they cut back too because of the fact that Bubba Wallace has spun out. And right there during the TV broadcast, they're just, Bowman completely turned him, like Bowman just got into him. Bubba Wallace is wrecked, da-da-da. Well, Wallace kept it going. He was able to get going again. He wasn't taken out of the race. And looking at his car, it had some damage, but I wouldn't even really say it was heavily damaged. And they missed it. It wasn't until seeing the in-car footage later on that I got to see exactly what happened and how exactly Bubba Wallace ended up getting turned. Now, yes, Bowman did technically turn him, but it was Bubba Wallace's fault. And I love that Denny Hamlin even said so on his podcast. Bubba Wallace wasn't clear. Tried clearing himself. Plain and simple. Now, after the race, Bowman did try to go talk to Wallace. and Wallace, as well as some PR girl for 2311, kind of pushed past and didn't want to talk to anybody. They weren't doing any interviews. Bubba looked real upset. And so, because of that, Alex Bowman kind of talked off a little bit in some interviews. Oh, well, I think he thinks I right hooked him. It was just hard racing. And that's where he even mentioned the fact that for him it wasn't about the million. He wasn't even thinking about the in-season challenge. Um, and that for him, he was just trying to get another spot. And he was on fresher tires. And he even mentioned the fact that the 45 basically got to go right by him. And he didn't know why it was that Wallace was even picking some stuff with him. There was a funny pre-race interview between the two where they were asked about their history at Chicago because last year they got into it near the end and Bowman did put Wallace into the wall, which did lead to Bowman getting to win the race. So they kind of got to talk about that and they made a little bit of a joke. Alex Bowman said that him and Wallace met at McDonald's, had a nice meal. After that, they went over to Ally to open up a savings account, which of course McDonald's being Bubba Wallace's sponsor, and then you have Ally being Alex Bowman's sponsor. So kind of a fun little way to be able to include both their sponsors in the response, and just a fun little play at them being able to have a fun day together. So I thought that was a really cool little interview. I would kind of like to see how the two of them would interview together right now, but a few days after the race, there was a thing put out on NASCAR's Twitter where both of them had been saying a few things where Alex Bowman kind of apologized to Bubba Wallace because he said, well, when I first did those interviews, I had the mindset that he thought I just right reared him and spun him, which isn't the case. Bubba Wallace has come out to say a few things about it just being good hard racing, no love loss, and I like that. I question it a little bit because part of me wonders, did maybe Denny Hamlin or someone else in 2311 tell him to say that because they don't want any more beef going forward with the Hendrick boys? I don't know. I've seen some people speculate on that. Oh, he's just trying to say this because he was told to. 50-50 on that for me. I can see where he truly doesn't feel bad about anything that happened with Alex Bowman, and he knows it was hard racing. Maybe he himself has gone back to look at the replays and saw that, yeah, you know what? I wasn't clear, and I basically went across the front of his nose, wrecked myself. I don't know. I wish he would have done some post-race interviews to kind of see how he was feeling in the moment. But at the same time, maybe for him it was the right move not to. And not open up his mouth until he went and actually watched it. So I don't know. Kind of a respectful moment for him. I'm not the biggest fan of him due to some stuff that's happened with him in the past. If you're a NASCAR fan, you'll know what I'm talking about, and I don't need to go more into that. And it's due to that. He's never been able to redeem himself in my eyes. But it was kind of a nice thing to see that he didn't pop off. And Alex Bowman really didn't say anything horrible in any of his interviews. I don't really think he needed to say sorry like he kind of did. But I also understand, he's trying to show some respect towards a fellow racer, so I'm not going to criticize him for saying sorry. I just don't really think it was necessary. But, oh well, that's just my views on that. He's the one in the car, so he's going to be the one that makes that call. Maybe even someone at Hendrick was like, hey, you know what, we need to take a step back from this. He's not saying anything bad, so we should really just kind of apologize and just, make sure that we don't muddy the water and we let things just smooth back out. This is going to lead me to the end of the race. With less than 2 to go, and I say less than 2 because SVG was about, it was 4 or 5 turns away from the end. Or no, sorry, from the start-finish line, taking the white flag. Cody Ware goes really hard into the tire barriers in turn 6. Hey, I actually knew what turn it was in. Thank you, broadcast. One of the few times they mentioned the turn that the driver was in when they went into one of the barriers. Only reason I knew about what turn it was for the host of our incident was actually thanks to Austin Dillon when I got to listen to his in-car. So, again, broadcasting failed me a little bit there. But oh well. They did not call the caution right away. NASCAR missed how hard Cody Ware hit the wall. Went into the tire barrier to hit the wall that was behind it. He was going almost 100 miles an hour when he went into the wall head first. He had brake issues. It bounced off a little bit of the sidewall and then went right head first into the turn. Into the tire barriers, completely crumpled in his whole front section of his car, all the way from the front bumper, basically to the first apex. Sorry, the A bar, I think is what it's called. I'm not a mechanic. I'm trying to think of the right thing to call it, but it's right there by the driver's front side. Basically, the whole engine compartment compressed in. He couldn't get moving at all. There was smoke even coming up out of the front. When they first cut away to show him in the tire barrier, I was like, "Oh, that's a caution." Nope, not right away. I don't know if it was because of the rain that was coming in, if it was because of the fact that Tyler Reddick did make it up to second, and he was on better tires than SVG, or really what. I don't know. Did they want to just give SVG a perfect weekend, starting on the pole, winning the Xfinity race, starting on the pole for Cup and winning it too? I don't know. But they decided to wait until after SVG took the white flag before calling the yellow. And he was about to turn 2 even when they called it. He had taken the yellow, was just through turn 1, and that's when they finally threw it. He'd taken the white. Obviously didn't take the yellow. He took the white, was going through turn 1, almost to turn 2, and they throw the yellow flag. So they did wait almost a full minute on that, maybe even a little bit over. And I will say that I blame the broadcasting again a little bit on that one. I know the NASCAR officials are supposed to be watching stuff and everything too, but that's partially on the broadcasting. They didn't catch him going into it, and he was even on the radio talking with his team about having issues with his car. If you're supposed to have someone that's kind of monitoring all that up in the booth, and how on earth were you missing the fact you had a driver with a serious mechanical issue with 2 laps to go? You should have had something following him. We should have gone split screen camera, showing some other battle, and then showing him with his issues and his team radio going. Because they even talked about it, I saw it in the radioactive. He was talking with his team almost that entire last lap that he was able to drive. So the whole last lap with 2 to go, he was on the radio with his team talking about having some brake issues. But they didn't have anybody following that. And in fact, any of the replays didn't even show him going into the wall. It was all just already him in the wall. A fan video posted to Twitter and YouTube shows the driver going into the wall. My gosh. Watching that video, it's rough. He hits hard. And seeing the video, you would think instantly, that's a yellow right away. Hands down, you knew for 1, he wasn't going to be able to get himself out of there. For 2, potentially injured driver with how hard he hit. And for 3, who cares how many laps are left? That's a caution. 100%. I don't care if SVG was 5 yards from the white, taking the white flag, getting to the start-finish line, or 5 turns like he was. That should have been a caution right away. And who cares if it meant that we had a green-white finish, or if it even decided to go into rain. If it started downpouring, oh well. All right, there you go. SVG took the yellow. He's still the leader. Now, while under caution, we got to end the race. Okay, you know what? It would kind of take away from a great weekend, but at the same time, you would have made the right call because of a driver's safety. And that's the part that really upsets me the most. With how hard Cody hit that wall, he could have been injured. I know it quite isn't as hard as Connor Zilic hit earlier this year, but it's still about the same situation in my mind. And they threw the yellow almost instantly on that one. So for me, it was a big miss. I'm still happy for SVG. He got to win the race because he did take the white flag, and then they called the yellow. If it wouldn't have been for Cody Ware going into the tire barrier, then SVG would have had a great win. Tyler Reddick wasn't going to catch him unless SVG made a major mistake on that last lap. So either way, he was going to win that. But I really wish NASCAR would have thrown the yellow. I do. It just would have been the right call to make, and I'm not going to try and deny that. It's just the honest to God truth on this one. So, still happy for SVG, but yeah, that I don't like that. NASCAR needs to be more consistent with their yellows, whether it be road course, short track, super speedway, whatever. I don't care where the heck we're racing. You guys got to be better on the button. They do. I mean, like, I don't like to see drivers be in positions where they can get hurt. And anyone else could have spun out. Let's say that he had brake fluid on the track because of his brakes going out right there. You tell me someone else couldn't spin out because of that and then go flying into him? It could happen. Made it even worse. So yeah, the whole minute they decided to hold off on the caution, to me it upsets me. It does. So, but again, I'm happy for SVG. He has won 2 out of 3 of his Cup Series races that he got to do at Chicago, winning his very first Cup Series race ever back in 2023 when he came in as a guest appearance, basically, and then dominated the show. Absolutely awesome, though. I loved watching that race, too. That was a great one. I have his little 164 up in my collection for that one. Definitely going to be adding the 164 of both the Xfinity and the Cup Series win from this week into my collection. I was hoping to see Lionel put out a 2-pack. They did not. So, oh well. I'll get each one individually, I guess. But cool thing, though, is that his win will be the first 164 that I have of that new chassis style with the rubber wheels I talked about a few episodes ago. So that part's kind of cool too. I'm excited for that to be able to be added to the collection. And he got to win both of his Xfinity Series races at Chicago. I do also have the 164 of his win from there too. So he's undefeated for Xfinity. And the only reason he's not undefeated for Cup, I forget who took him out, but there was an accident that took him out last year. And I don't remember who it was, but someone else spun out and then went into him. So, only reason, if it wasn't for that, I feel like he would be 3 for 3 in the Cup Series as well. But 2 for 3 isn't bad. He's got 2 wins now this year. Sits, I think, if I remember correctly, it's 5th for points now, for playoff points. So, not standings. That's where a lot of people get, they got the standings side of it. No, he's still down in like the 20s. It's the playoffs where he's now in 5th, because you have your playoff points you get from winning races. He's in 5th there. Standings still back in the 20s. That's still another topic with the whole winning you're in. But at this point with him, he now has 2 wins. So I don't know. It puts me in a weird position with that, because it's like, if they gave more points for winning the races, like I feel like they should, then maybe he would be higher up in the point standings now. But I don't. There's a lot there for that, guys. There is. So I don't want to get caught up too much into that. But yes, SVG's in the playoffs. He is, and now he's more of a contender. And guess what? We're going to Sonoma next. Another road course. You know who I'm picking. SVG for the win. My second pick, because he's done so well there before, and because of the fact he is one of my 2 tops, Kyle Larson. It'll be the first time I'm picking him for a race since I started doing my podcast. I did pick William Byron once. Sadly, it didn't go very well. So I'm hoping that's not a curse for Hendrick with me. But Kyle Larson, he's my second top favorite driver. Him and William Byron are basically tied right there, but I will put Byron just a little bit over him at this point. But he is my second favorite, and he's my second pick. So Kyle Larson, SVG, hoping it can be one of those 2. And the last thing for Cup I'm going to say, I need to get myself some Alex Bowman gear. Second week in a row, I really wish I would have had a hat or a shirt. Most likely both, though, so I could be able to rep Alex Bowman, because my gosh, he made me happy. Whenever I saw Bubba Wallace spin off the front, even if it was partially Bubba Wallace's fault, I still cheered so loud. I actually scared my cat. Yep, he woke up out of his nap and thought the whole world was ending because I was cheering. It was hilarious. That'll do it though for Cup and for NASCAR, but it's not going to do it for the show yet. I know. Wow, I'm right there at that 55-minute mark. Usually I'm already wrapping it up by now. But I got one more thing to talk about, everybody. We had IndyCar at Mid Ohio. It was the Honda Indy 200. Crazy start to the race, and it was a pretty good race all around. Now, I'm not going to go into every single thing about it. Alex Palou did have the pole, led a lot of the race. You had Joseph Newgarden. Yeah, he was out of the whole race. Lap 1, turn 2. It was, in fact, his third straight DNF, and the first time in his career that he's had 3 straight finishes of 21st or worse. Now, I will say technically he got to go back out on the track a little bit here and there as they tried, because they've tried to do some repairs to the car, but he was never able to get any speed down, had to keep going back to the pits, and still finished outside the top 21. So the stat still stands, but I don't know if it'll technically go down as a true DNF or not at this point because of the fact that he did make a few more laps. Other than that, horrible day still for Penske. Lap 12, Scott McGullen. He goes to the pits due to losing power. As he slows down the rest of the way and makes it to his pit stop, his right side catches fire. They show in on the replay, really zoom in on it. Looks like it came out of his exhaust pipe. They're speculating some engine oil potentially was leaking and it caught fire. So it took him out of the race. So 2 out of 3 Penske cars out within the first 15 laps. It's been a horrible year for them. If anyone remembers even back to the Indy 500, they had some drivers taken out before the race even started. So, yeah, just not a great year for Penske right now when it comes to IndyCar. They also got caught cheating earlier in the year too and everything, again at the Indy 500. So, just horrible for them right at the moment. I'm not a huge Penske fan, but I can also say I still hate to see this. I don't ever like to see a team have such bad luck when it comes to the season. I know some people are going to say, hey, they deserve it. They've been cheating. They finally got caught, this and that, da-da-da-da-da. You know what? I'm sorry. They got paid back pretty good just at the Indy 500 alone, and I feel like at this point they should be able to get something figured out and start getting back into the season. Because if not, then they might as well just shut it down. We're over halfway through the season for IndyCar, and only 2 different teams have even won. So now it's 3 drivers after this past weekend. But wow, not great. I will say, other than that, I don't have much to talk about. Lap 69 though, Alex Palou was leading the race, but couldn't get around Stingray Bob. Very important when it came to the closing laps of the race. That's why I'm even mentioning this. Because he needed to make a pit stop. And he was going to be losing some time due to being stuck behind Mr. Stingray. His teammate Scott Dixon was getting closer. And he ended up pitting. Came out, was just 1.5 seconds in the lead. Scott Dixon kept putting on some pressure. And with just 6 laps to go, Palou made a very major mistake. Kind of got loose, went off the track a little bit, slowed him down, allowed Scott Dixon to get right around him. Now, Palou was about a second back after he was finally able to get up to speed. And again, this is only with 6 laps to go. So with about 4 to go, he got right back up there on Scott Dixon, but couldn't make a pass. There's a few times he got a little close, but just could never be able to capitalize on it. Ended up falling back every time. And that allowed Scott Dixon to win the race. So we finally have a new winner for the year. Scott Dixon, very well done at the end there. He only did 2 pit stops throughout the entire race. It was his strategy from the get-go. He was hoping to try and get it done on that. Be honest though, if Alex Palou didn't make the mistake, Dixon would have just had to settle for second. But hey, our champion leader made a mistake, and it cost him the race. It was actually the second mistake he made throughout the race. There was early in the race, and he put his driver's side rear off the track, and it almost spun him out. I watched the replay of that a couple times, and he got lucky. Even the commentators made a comment about that he got lucky, and it was true. He did. So, absolutely great race there. I enjoyed watching it. It literally was on right whenever I was doing my podcast, so I actually had to watch the replay whenever it finally got posted to YouTube just a few days ago. But again, it was great, and I've been enjoying watching all these different series this year, really diving deep into all of it, especially due to me doing the podcast. So, as always, I just want to thank everybody for listening, and excited for this coming weekend with Sonoma. So, let's see what happens. Till I talk to y'all again, stay safe out there and have a good one.